While most people were focused on CATL, BYD, and Tesla, Chery was quietly developing something in the background, a battery that is not only capable of ultra-fast charging, but also powerful enough to eliminate range anxiety altogether. Recently, Chery announced a 600 watt-hours per kilogram solid-state battery, and that claim has sparked excitement throughout the automotive industry. To put it into perspective, most EVs today operate with battery energy densities of around 250 to 300 watt-hours per kilogram. If Chery's technology performs as promised, electric vehicles could offer twice the driving range, greater power with reduced weight, and, most importantly, address many of the safety concerns associated with current battery systems. However, the key question remains: is this another ambitious promise, or is it a genuine breakthrough that could challenge industry leaders like Tesla, BYD, and Toyota? History has shown that impressive technological claims often sound revolutionary, but the real challenge lies in large-scale production and long-term reliability. Can Chery truly transform the EV industry, or is this simply another wave of hype? What technology is powering this development, and how could it impact the future of the market? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss videos like this. Today, Chery appears to be one of the fastest growing players in the global EV market, but its origins were far more modest. The company was founded in 1,997 inches, Wuhu, a small city in China. At the time, it was not a major private automaker, but rather a local government initiative with a straightforward mission to establish its own automobile industry. In the beginning, they had neither advanced technology nor global experience. In fact, according to many reports, they learned by reverse engineering early engines and designs. But this is where Chery's real story begins. While other companies were comfortable staying in the domestic market, Chery focused on exports from the very start. In 2001, they began selling cars overseas and gradually built a strong presence in markets like the Middle East, South America, and Africa. This strategy is what makes them different from many other Chinese brands, because they didn't limit themselves to China. Now, if we talk about today's numbers, Chery is selling around 1.8 to 2 million cars every year. In 2023 and 2024, they even achieved record sales. And the most important part is that their export sales are growing very fast, meaning they are no longer just a China-based company, but have become a true global player. Now let's come to the most interesting part: battery and EV technology. Chery didn't suddenly start working on batteries. This journey actually began around 2010. At that time, the EV market was still in its early stage, but the Chinese government was aggressively pushing electric mobility. Chery started investing in R&D at that time, first hybrid systems, then pure EV platforms, and now advanced technologies like solid-state batteries. Chery's approach has been a bit different. It doesn't make flashy announcements like Tesla, but quietly builds technology. Over the past few years, it has also launched its own dedicated EV brands and platforms like Omoda and Exeed, and has been consistently working on battery efficiency, cost control, and range improvement. Now, the 600 watt-hours per kilogram solid-state battery claim didn't come suddenly. It is the result of nearly a decade of research, and Chery has gradually developed this technology with its battery partners and in-house team. Their focus is not just on high performance, but also on cost and scalability, because the real game is won in mass production. Today, competition in the global market is extremely intense. Big names like Tesla, BYD, and Toyota are already in the race. But Chery's strength is that it is growing quietly without too much hype. Current EV problem reality check. If you think about buying an EV in today's time, along with excitement, a few fears also come into your mind. And these fears are actually slowing down EV adoption. First, let's talk about range anxiety. You always have this tension that the car might stop in the middle of the journey. In petrol and diesel cars, you know that you'll find a fuel station every few kilometers. But in EVs, finding a charging station is still not that easy, especially in smaller cities or on highways. Imagine you are on a long trip and your battery starts running low. The biggest question becomes, where will you charge? Now, this uncertainty is what holds people back. Now let's talk about charging time. Filling petrol takes just 5 minutes, but charging an EV fully can take anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours depending on the charger. Fast chargers are not available everywhere, and charging with a normal charger is even slower. That means if you are in a hurry, an EV does not give you the same flexibility that traditional cars do. The third problem is battery degradation. It may sound a bit technical, But in simple terms, as you use an EV, over time, its battery capacity slowly starts decreasing. A car that initially gives 400 to 500 kilometers range may drop to 300 to 350 kilometers after a few years. And the biggest fear is that if the battery gets damaged, replacing it can be very expensive. Sometimes the battery itself is a major portion of the car's total cost. Now, let's talk about safety, which is the biggest hidden fear in people's minds. Many times, you might have seen in the news that an EV caught fire. These are rare cases, but when they happen, they can be quite dangerous because lithium-ion batteries carry a risk of thermal runaway, meaning once a fire starts, it becomes very difficult to control. That's why many people still wonder, is an EV really safe, especially when it comes to family safety? Apart from this, infrastructure is also a big issue. In big cities, the charging network is slowly improving, but it is still not uniform everywhere. For people living in apartments, even home charging becomes a challenge. And if you have to depend on public chargers, then availability and waiting time become another headache. Now, if you connect all these points, you understand why there is hesitation in buying EVs. People like the technology. They understand fuel savings. They agree with the environmental benefits. But when it comes to practical usage, all these small problems together turn into a big decision. Now let's understand what a solid-state battery actually is. Today, most EVs use lithium-ion batteries. Inside these batteries, there's a liquid called an electrolyte. This liquid helps electricity move from one side to another. You can think of it like water flowing inside a pipe. Only when the water flows does the system work. But this same liquid electrolyte is also the biggest weakness because it is flammable. Meaning, if the battery overheats or gets damaged, there is a risk of fire. That is why sometimes EV fire incidents come into the news. Now, this is where solid-state batteries come in. As the name suggests, instead of liquid, a solid material is used inside the battery. This means that the water-like pipe is removed and replaced with a solid pathway through which electricity flows. You can understand it like this. Earlier, you were driving on a rough road where there was always a risk of slipping. Now that same road has turned into a strong, smooth highway. What is the biggest advantage of this? First of all, safety. Since there is no liquid inside, the risk of fire becomes much lower. And that means the hidden fear that people carry in their minds can be reduced to a great extent. The second big advantage is energy density, meaning storing more power in the same space. In simple terms, if earlier your bag could carry 5 books, now the same bag can carry 10 books without increasing its size. This means the EV's range will increase, and the battery size or weight will not increase as much. A solid-state battery can theoretically charge much faster because it has lower internal resistance and generates less heat. That means in the future, it could be possible for your car to charge significantly in just 10 to 15 minutes, which feels like a dream for today's EV users. And one more interesting point.